Welcome to the Dealer Playbook Podcast. My name is Michael Cirillo, and each week I sit down with the brightest minds in marketing, sales, and leadership to help you level up your career in automotive. Thank you so much for spending your time here with me today. Now let's open up the playbook. Here we go. Hey, what's going on? We're back with another episode of the Dealer Playbook Podcast. Today I'm joined by my new friend, Schaefer, a career musician turned leadership mentor coach juggernaut. Listen, man, this guy is going to drop some power bombs about leadership, probably from an angle that you may not be expecting. I know I wasn't. I was planning on rolling into this episode giving people a big fat leadership kick to the nuts. But you got to stay tuned because he really shifts the paradigm and shows you what you can do to be a leader of one. Here we go. There you go. And I'm super intrigued by the topic because collaborative leadership is not something you hear a lot of, especially in this space. I mean, there don't get me wrong. I mean, there are very progressive car dealers out there, dealership owners, but the idea of I'm the boss, do what I say, is still very prominent.
Yeah.
And not just in this industry, but in a variety of industries. Like right now, I mean, my wife's going to roll her eyes when she listens to this episode because I would say one of my man crushes right now is Chef Gordon Ramsay. And
man.
We've been watching a ton of his like Kitchen Nightmare shows and Hotel Hell. And what attracts me to this guy is his style of rolling in, smacking somebody upside the head, bursting their bubble so that he can teach them, hey, here's what you need to do to succeed. And one of the biggest problems I notice on every episode is how head in the ground the leader is.
Yes. Or the boss. They might not actually be a leader. That's the problem. It's interesting. And the work that we do, at banding, it's essentially, we help people get out of their own way. We help like what a producer does in with a band in the studio environment. We help create the optimal conditions so the magic can happen. And what's really fascinating is, those who can't distinguish between like a boss or a manager or a leader, they're very different things. And, what's especially interesting in the car business, at least what I found, with my father and watching his career, how does someone get to be like the sales manager? It's because they sold a lot of cars. Mm-hmm. So the same skill set that makes you great at connecting with people, or maybe or your deal maker, whatever it is, isn't necessarily the same skill set required for leading others and coaching others and helping others step into their best self. And so, this is a pretty simple idea from my point of view, which is, look, our job as leaders is to create an environment where people want to be. And so what does that look like? And, I think there's, I don't even think you can, limit this to leadership. I think this is a human thing, right? We all want to have a voice. We all want to be heard, right? Whether you're even a customer, someone who's going in to buy a car still wants to be heard. And then the question becomes like, what are you doing to make sure that they feel heard, or are you just trying to close the deal?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's because really at the end of the day, you're still providing a solution. Someone's got a problem they got to solve. And I think it's your job, whatever you're selling, is to help them solve the problem. Hey, I need something that's going to make me feel better about myself, or I want something to get me from point A to point B, or I need something for my job, whatever it is. And so, this idea that, it's funny. I've heard it said, and I think it was So I had someone who told me this, who picked me up. I was doing a talk down in Amelia Island, and I think it might be a Zig Ziglar quote. I'm not sure, but he said to me, he goes, "People don't care about what you know until they know you care."
Mm.
And I got to tell you, my father cared. It was evident. He cared enough to where it didn't matter what kind of car he was selling. His people followed him wherever he went. And that's pretty telling, right? I mean, when he was selling BMWs, like, oh, it's such a superior car than Mercedes. Well, then we sell Mercedes, and all those people that he said don't buy the Mercedes, they went and bought the Mercedes. And then when he went to Jaguar, it's like, it's a different car. This is English. This is but they bought him.
Sure.
And so he
Well, that kind of reminds me of I think it's Simon Sinek who said something along the lines of, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it.
That's right.
And so that kind of ties in there, because I mean, to this day, just franchise new car salespeople in the United States, something like 230,000, maybe a little bit more or less. And what majority of them are sitting there right now going, man, nobody wants to buy from me. This is slow. Things are slow. I've had people that listen to the show reach out to me on Facebook and say, man, I'm having the slowest month I've ever had. I'm doing everything I know how. What I find intriguing, though, is what you're talking about is often the thing that, okay, we're doing everything we know how to do. This is often the thing they don't do. This is almost like personal leadership first.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what does it take to get there? I mean, what does it take to kind of have that self-awareness and say, hey, you know what? There is this one thing that I can do differently, and it's that I need to start leading myself. I need to be a leader of myself. I need to be a leader of others. I don't have to wait for my store managers or the common excuses that we all give ourselves. Well, my boss won't let me do that, or my boss won't let me be a leader of myself, or because we give ourselves these types of things. So what can I do? What's the paradigm shift? What do I tell myself to say, no, actually, you do have more control than you think you do. Here's what you do.
Well, I'll tell you, there's a few things, and we can kind of maybe parcel this into a couple different ideas. Okay. I think first and foremost, one thing that would be helpful for those listening is, so this idea of just when we talk about collaboration, right, and working with people, right, there's no good reason why any of us should be good at it. There really isn't, and I'd like to lay out kind of three very particular reasons. So the reason banding people together exists, we solve a problem that we call collaborative insanity, which is the simple notion that just telling people to work together better accomplishes anything. Like, hey, I need you to work better with Steve, and Steve, I need to work better with Mike. Like, it doesn't really change anything, right? It's almost the equivalent of going, hey, you're an adult now. Oh, you don't speak Italian. I need you to go speak Italian over there with that person. Right? So we've never been taught in school how to collaborate, right? So that's the first problem. So the second piece of this is there's no collaborative rules of the road. So there are the equivalent of collaborative car crashes going on every second of every day. I mean, think about if everyone gets on the road today and decides, you know what, there are no rules. I mean, I'm just going to drive how I feel based on my agenda or my mood or whatever. You have chaos and a lot of emergency room visits. Mm-hmm. And then the third piece, because there's no rules of the road, it's completely subjective. And this is a big idea. So what's collaborative to you and what's collaborative to somebody else most likely aren't the same thing. And therein lies the rub. So now there's three reasons why, how in the world could we possibly really collaborate in any way that makes sense? And so, there's something that I've dabbled in a little bit and learned about called game theory, economic game theory. And one of the thoughts in game theory is that in order to be a rational player in the game, you have to have all the information. And so when we're working with others, I think the challenge is we don't have all the information. And by the way, especially for your audience, this isn't just about internally, this is externally. So like, you know, when someone walks into a showroom, I mean, there's a collaboration to be had, right?
Right. Yeah, for sure.
And collaboration also, it's more than just an activity. We define collaboration by alignment. So here's the thing. We have a methodology called true collaboration, and what we teach is that if you're not aligned, you're not collaborating, you're cooperating. And let me tell you what happens when people cooperate. That's when you get the meeting after the meeting, and the water cooler talk. But as human beings, when we're aligned, things feel good, right? Think about any human dynamic. You know, you can be in a restaurant and see a couple that's maybe having a bad go at it. Mm-hmm. Just look at their body language and go, okay, they're not aligned. Sure. So I think as leaders, our job is to help create the conditions to get people aligned so the magic can happen. And so, you know, I think the first thing that someone really can do is not wait for somebody else, right? And so leadership is about self-awareness. You know, the more self-aware that I get, the more effective of a leader I become, and the greater results that I see in our organization, individually and collectively. And I don't think that's rocket science.
Why aren't more people self-aware, in your opinion?
Oh, well, so I can tell you, and I'll try not to go psychobabble on you.
Okay.
There's this thing called the ego. And I've heard it described as edging greatness out. Yeah, not my words. I don't know where I picked that up along the way. And so the ego is, you know, ego is almost like animal instinct, right? It's what kicks in to help you when you think you need it to survive.
Sure.
So things like fear, anger, jealousy, you know,
sure.
Those are all things that, like, you know, like it's the protective piece.
Sure.
And here's what's so fascinating about the ego. The ego, you know, some people believe that perception is reality, and I don't believe that at all. I believe perception is one's reality. So, you know, you go into a restaurant with 5 people and everybody get the same hamburger. 3 people are going to tell you it's the best burger they ever had. One's going to say it's the worst, and one's going to say it's so-so. Mm-hmm. So what? So what does that mean, right? It's like somebody saying, well, I got a good deal, I got a bad deal, I got an okay deal. That salesman was good, he was bad, he was okay. These are these descriptors that, again, just like collaboration, are completely subjective. And so therein lies the rub of, like, getting to a place of going, I mean, we have blind spots. So when you're driving in a car, you know, so if you're trained properly in a car, you know that when you look in the side mirror, that you need to look this way because you have a blind spot. As human beings, we don't think we have blind spots. So for anyone listening, I would say the first thing, the path to awareness, is to know that you have blind spots.
It's funny, as you're talking about this, I'm thinking, man, you know what? I've said perception is reality. With this one edition of perception is one's reality, and further validating that point with your burger analogy, because we do that all the time. Growing up in a European household, the perception was, no, you need to accept my perception of reality. I like the burger. You're crazy for not liking the burger. And we do this all the time. Like, imagine what would happen on Facebook if everyone could just accept the fact that perception is one's reality.
Oh, man. Well, now
Facebook would cease to exist. There would be no reason.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And you know, excuse me, it's, you know, and along those lines of reality, you know, I think our job as a leader is to take as much of this, you know, the more I'm able to take subjectivity out of those that I lead, whether it's our customers, whether it's people in our organization, the better it feels, the more clarity we have, right? And because the idea is like, someone said something to me so important one time, and I've never forgotten it. And it was he was the head of sales for a global hotel organization, and he said, "I don't know what I don't know." And some people aren't really comfortable with that. For a guy like me, I live by it. I want to stumble into every blind spot I got. And here's the thing. Here's what I think a great leader does. And I continuously work at it. Not only does a great leader help everyone else step into their best selves, they drink their own medicine.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, there's no one on my team that can't offer constructive feedback or criticism at any given time in anything that we do. And not only is it wanted, it is expected. Like if you're going to be in this band, so we have this foundational agreement that we're all here to help each other step into our best selves. Now, here's the thing. If you really believe it, it takes the sting out of that big, big, bad C word, criticism,
mm-hmm.
or the F word, feedback. Because I just don't take anything personally. It's
part of your culture.
Yeah, it's part of the culture. And something, we've all, so under the guise of the perception thing, so obviously you're familiar with the golden rule, right? Which is essentially treat others how you want to be treated.
Sure.
Have you ever heard of the platinum rule?
I don't know.
Oh, man. The platinum rule is treat others how they want to be treated.
Okay.
Think about this. And let me give you a great example. Here's hopefully a concrete example. So have you ever heard someone will say, well, I don't know what they got upset about. That wouldn't have bothered me. I wouldn't have been upset if they said that to me. It's like, guess what? You're not me.
Yeah, fair enough.
I mean, it's simple, right?
Yeah. So
think about even for the customer that's sitting, someone sitting there getting ready to buy a car, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are you if you're treating them like you want to be treated, you might be.
You got a 50-50.
That's right. You treat them like they want. My father always treated everybody like they wanted to be treated. That was his jam.
So I know the question now that some are thinking, well, how do we find out how they want to be treated in a way that isn't creepy? Do you know what I mean? Customer walks into the showroom or into your business, whatever the setting is, and they're sitting here thinking, how do I know how these people want to be treated?
Well, that's a good question. So I'll tell you, I think there's a few things that people, again, under the guise of self-awareness. I mean, I think just the act of, just the act of going into a car dealership is like, depending on whether you're an introvert, an extrovert, a type A, or something like, man, I don't want to have to negotiate.
Sure.
That's why you've seen these non-negotiated models pop up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so empathy is the word that I would use. And empathy is probably not something that maybe gets associated with the sales process, or especially in the in the car dealership world. But knowing full well that someone's sitting here and that this is a big purchase for them, it's a big decision. And that just the very nature of the dynamic for some is really uncomfortable. I mean, some people, like my twin brother, would rather lick oatmeal out of a toilet than sit there and have anything that is remotely confrontational,
sure,
in any shape or form. And then there's other people that want to come in and they want to win. They want to feel like they won, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody wants to get the deal. And, I think the idea that, I think that when you're selling, the goal is to be a trusted advisor and to help someone solve the problem. And, here's what's so funny. It's like, and you can speak to this, but like my understanding, from talking to my father about this, he's been retired for years, but, I don't know if people realize the shift that has happened. Cars have gotten so the car business, just like every other business has gotten so commoditized. These guys aren't making money because they're like pounding you on the margins, right? The way a lot of these salespeople are earning their bonuses is by volume, right? In some cases. And so as a consumer, one thing to think about is it's like, okay, maybe this person's actually more of an advocate than they might have been in the past, because it's just not the same dynamic always as it once was. And so, I just bought a car this past year, and this gentleman told me, and it was great, as a friend of my father, said, like, look, man, I'll be honest with you. I'll make more. I actually make more money selling something pre-owned than I do selling you this new car. We get, I get 30% of this.
Yeah.
And so like it was fascinating. Like he was explaining to me that, and he was so laid back, and he'd been doing it a long time. And he was like, hey man, just tell me what you need and I'm going to figure it out for you.
Yep.
So sorry, I don't mean to, get off the beaten path here, but so I know, so the idea of kind of this idea of awareness, like being self-aware and having this degree of empathy that, whoever's sitting across from you is perceiving the world most likely differently than you are. And so another great exercise to become more self-aware is to eliminate what I call absolutes. You know what absolutes are? So in language, you never, you always.
Okay. Yep.
Everybody.
Yep.
Oh, everything. You need to do X. You should do X.
Sure. Yeah.
People actually don't want to be told that. They don't want to. I can tell you this. My wife certainly, she doesn't want to be told you need to stay in our budget.
Yeah. Sure.
And so these, like, you'll be amazed now that I've maybe even mentioned this, like how often, like I still have to catch myself.
Sure. Because
here's the thing. It lacks awareness. It's very rare that something is an absolute. And you know what absolutes fuel? Absolutes close down the possibility of being open-minded. And at the end of the day, isn't that like the more self-aware we are, the more open-minded we become. And that's how we get aligned.
So I feel like, what I love about this is the truth is the truth. There's so many truths that you've shared. We've covered a variety of things here. Self-awareness.
Yep. How
to be more self-aware. I love this thing about absolutes because now I'm kind of replaying a bunch of different conversations in my head, and I'm like, wow, that was very absolute. One of the things I loved that you said is I don't know what I don't know. This idea of conscious incompetence.
Oh man, that's the phrase that pays. That's great.
Like I'm conscious that I don't know. Like if more people could just admit that they are consciously competent. Like I think of this progression of, I have a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 3-year-old. If I say to my 5-year-old, tie your shoes, he all of a sudden becomes aware that he never knew how to do that. Like, so he's kind of living in this state of unconscious incompetence because he actually didn't know that he didn't know. And then you teach him and he becomes consciously incompetent because he knows he didn't. Now he knows he didn't know. And then you kind of work through this progression of him practicing, so he becomes consciously competent at tying his shoes. Like, okay, now I'm, right over, left, under, that sort of thing. And ultimately you arrive at this kind of, I call it the football at the face kind of, if somebody throws a football at my face, I don't have to think about it. I'm just going to immediately, awesome. Throw my arms up. And so you become subconsciously competent. It's like you know it so well that you don't have to think about it anymore. And so it kind of, I think of these four phases because whether it's becoming self-aware, tying your shoes, showing empathy, whatever it might be, interactions with customers, with coworkers, leadership, spouses, significant others, it doesn't matter. That to me kind of embodies the progression that you take. Hey, maybe you didn't know that you were a piece of garbage or a dick or something like that. And then somebody made you aware and you realized, oh, wait, I am a dick. And then, and you kind of work through these phases until you get to the point where, like you said, Zig Ziglar's quote earlier, or his other famous quote about helping others, you'll have everything you want by helping others get what they want, sort of a mentality. And you're doing that so naturally that you don't have to think about it anymore. It's as if somebody's throwing a football at your face and you're catching it just out of instinct. Now it becomes instinctive.
Yeah, I will tell you, the world looks a lot different when you get to that place.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, you mean that there's going to be less people complaining about elections and?
Yeah, that's the other thing. So I think I think also under the guise of awareness and just sort of like changing your lens, I think there's some people that have more of an abundance mindset, and some people come from really more of a lack and that of scarcity.
Sure.
And so, I think for the 21st century leader, I have a friend named Ayelet Baron who just came out with a book, a great 21st century leadership book, and it's like the journey back to the journey to corporate sanity. And she talks a great deal about this coming from a place of abundance as opposed to a place of scarcity. And in a lot of organizations, they're actually the organizations themselves are creating the conditions that actually create the scarcity, which actually, competition is, by my estimation, a part of everything, and healthy competition is a part of the collaborative process.
Yeah.
Some pretty unhealthy conditions that get created, especially within sales organizations, and when you start talking about what we're rewarding and what we're penalizing people for.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, this idea that I think for those listening also, it's like, just because you're a boss doesn't mean you're a leader. And your job as a leader, if you can't get to a place where you believe that your job as a leader is anything less than helping others be great and elevating others, then I think you're missing it.
Do you think people? Well, I'm sure I know the answer to this because it's. I mean, the writing's on the wall. But let me rephrase what I was about to ask. Why do people feel intimidated or frightened by the concept of elevating those around them? Is it a jealousy thing? Is it a is it a job security thing? Like, I mean, why? In our organization, we really strive for a culture, and I say strive because we're not perfect at it. But the kind of underlying theme of the culture at our agency is, you do have a voice. We do want feedback, and we want to elevate. If you can't criticize without elevating, then you're just complaining or you're just being nitpicky or something like that. So, but I know what my answer would be, but I'm curious to hear from you. Why do so many quote unquote bosses think they're leading by not elevating, by critiquing the way they do, by being hard, by it's kind of this pseudo military mindset on, get down in the trenches and give me, that sort of a concept. What's your opinion?
Well, first of all, it's funny. Well, and while it was maybe unintentional, you used the word bosses.
Yeah.
And so, again, in a lot of cases, when somebody is made a boss, they're made a boss for maybe a number of different reasons. It's certainly not always their leadership ability. Maybe sometimes, maybe not. But here's so that's the scarcity mindset, though. Okay. Let me give you a great example. So I played around the music scene in Atlanta for years, and there are two types of bands. There's one type of artist or band that goes, "Oh man, can you believe that so and so around here just got a record deal?" And there's one type of band that goes, "They just got my deal."
Sure.
There's another mindset that goes, "Man, so and so just got a record deal, and now the whole world is looking at the music that's being made in Atlanta. What a great opportunity."
Sure. Yeah.
And that's a choice, but people who are coming from a place of scarcity, can be a number of different reasons. Gosh, and I don't mean to sound so psychobabbly, but sometimes it's just as simple as them, not having enough as a kid. I mean,
well, and I don't think it's psychobabble. I was about to say, were they just brought up wrong? Like, was this because of are they a subject of their circumstances being brought up, or?
Yeah, I'll tell you, someone who has. So I'll tell you this. So there's certain people that are a little maybe easier to lead than others. So what I've found is for people that have approval issues,
mm-hmm.
they're much more. You're going to do this a little bit more, and so you have to be a little more Bruce Lee be the water with them if they're going to make it.
Sure.
Because they have a convincing mechanism. They're proving, and while they're not consciously proving to you as mom or dad, essentially that's the dynamic that's being created. So I find that those people don't take criticism well, no matter how you serve it up. I will tell you this, at least for me, I've really had a shift in this last year. Somebody that I met in particular, Dwayne Cummings.
Mm-hmm.
He helped me see things a bit differently. I think there was a time where I thought, man, I'm investing so heavily in these people, and almost not a fear, but I want to make sure that I'm doing whatever I can to keep them here. And really, I flipped that. I've kind of done a 180 on that, and I'm like, if I focus on being the best leader that I can, and I invest in people, and I'm constantly elevating others, as Dwayne would say, the best thing that can happen is they get too big for this band, that they just have too much to offer the world, that we can't contain them. And what a testament to the environment and the culture and our collective, ability to grow here, which is a really different place to be. Sometimes, it's interesting. I think in the car business, sometimes you have people that are will never get a shot at being a leader because maybe they just sell too many deals. Maybe they're too good on the floor.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of factors, but I think, one of the things that people are just not good at is letting go. As human beings, we just kind of suck at that. It's why we self-sabotage. It's how we get in our own way, and I think I think to be a great leader and to be self-aware, I think you have to be able to let go. I think you have to be able to kind of look through a different lens and kind of be ravenous about learning.
Love it, man. Alan, thanks so much for joining me on the Dealer Playbook. Where can those listening or watching get in touch with you or your organization?
Yes, so we are bandingpeopletogether.com is the website. My email is Alan, ALAN, @bandingpt.com. And man, I always, this is my passion. This is my way of hoping to shift thinking in the world, and so the workplace doesn't suck, and so we can change the dinner table conversation because everyone has a great day at work. So I really appreciate you having me, and if anyone's also remotely curious, 5-Star Iris, you can check it out on YouTube. I think there's still plenty of stuff out.
Checking it out.
Yeah, FIVESTARIRIS, and anybody decides to email me, I'll send you some unreleased music. I'm just out of musical retirement.
Love it, man. Thanks so much for joining me on the DPB.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Look, man, I don't even know where to start, but that was some serious power bombage. In this episode, Alan shared some things that really stood out to me. For example, the concept of being a leader of one, being a leader of myself, leading myself, fostering and nurturing leadership character traits and attributes to govern myself first will have a very positive impact on those around me, whether it's customers, coworkers, my actual leadership, my subordinates, if that's a term that you would use as a leader. But, constantly being in this state of shifting your paradigm, changing the way you see things, admitting that you don't know certain things and that's something you should not be afraid of admitting. And just having this collaborative culture and work environment that's going to allow not only you, but those around you to rise to success. If you found this information valuable, I would be honored for an honest review on iTunes. I'm going to link you up in the description and in the show notes at www.thedealerplaybook.com. And until next time, guys, keep the playbook open and dominate.